Konami is a company that I feel like everyone knows that plays video games. They've made a huge impact on the gaming industry over the past several decades. They brought us cool franchises like the Castlevania series, Contra, Metal Gear Solid, and even Silent Hill, and many more. Konami was seriously one of those developers that just made so many games it was hard to keep up with back in the 90s. With the RPG scene getting kind of big in the 90s, they had to step it up to make the Suikoden series, which is a pretty good game series if you haven't played it. And as well as they did Mystical Ninja starring Goemon even on Nintendo 64, and those games were also pretty fun. After the major success with games like Metal Gear Solid and Silent Hill, they kind of wanted to try something different. Soul of the Samurai was developed in '99 by them, and it was a game that really wasn't talked about a whole lot, I feel like. And even today, not a whole lot of people talk about it. It's definitely got a crowd out there who speaks of this game, but it's a Konami title that's kind of gotten lost in mystery over the past several years. So, is this game at all worth your time to check out and play? I'm here today to review Soul of the Samurai for the PS1. Soul of the Samurai is an action-adventure game developed and published by Konami, of course, and it came out in 1999 only for the PS1. Some cool facts about when they were developing this game was going to be called Shogun Assassin, and it was actually going to be a shogunate secret police, and you played as two characters, Hataru and Hyaku, which is similar to what you have here in this game. Konami also stated that they had key elements borrowed from Bushido Blade as well as Tenchu. Those were influences making Soul of the Samurai. The story of this game actually has two protagonists. The first protagonist is Kataru Hiba, and he's a samurai, and the other character is Lin. She's a ninja. Kataru's in town, and he sees this girl named Lin and decides to talk to her. They exchange some words. He's there to pay his dues for his parents that are dead at the graveyard, at the temple, and then Lin's there because she's trying to find her brother Shin. Well, that's how it all starts, but things get a little bit more murky after that. As they go about their business, they run into people who definitely have something going on. There's this virus that's getting out. It's called soul bugs, and these soul bugs get inside these people, and they pretty much just make them into superhuman. Sounds like another franchise that's so close to this story. Once you find out about these soul bugs, you gotta go find this guy named Tojo and Oda and go to the castle and stop them. That way you can stop this virus from spreading. Soul of the Samurai, to its core, is an action-adventure game. It's a very slow-paced game where you navigate through fixed camera angles around this village, and you go to different areas. For the most part, you'll just be exploring, gathering items, and you do a lot of swordplay involved, and that's the huge focus of this game. The controls of this game is about what you would expect with a game like this. You move with the D-pad, and you can use the control stick on analog mode to move as well, but it's not really necessary. You attack with the square button. The circle button is your use item feature. You jump with X, which you won't jump a whole lot in this game, but it's there. Triangle is to draw and sheath your sword, and you'll have to make sure to do that before getting into combat, or you're going to run in there like a little no-armed baby just getting killed. You can hold the L1 button to run faster, and then you can use the R1 button to block, and you're going to be using this quite a lot in this game because a lot of enemies are going to try to attack you. Well, you can hold the block and you'll deflect the attack. If you time it correctly with R1 and square, you'll actually do a parry and you'll counterattack, and it'll one-shot any enemy except for bosses. When you're holding R1 as well, you can double tap over and you'll actually do like a little dodge. This is a very useful technique when you're fighting against these enemies. 9 times out of 10, when you use it whenever they attack, it makes them wide open and it's a good opportunity to go in for a strike. At the top left is your health bar. That's the green bar that you see at the top. Then below it, you have like a little blue bars that have up to 5. That's your magic power. You'll learn attacks throughout the game, which actually your experience bar is right beside it, the yellow bar. Every time you get your experience all the way up for fighting enemies, you'll learn a new attack, and it's some kind of button combination you gotta do. Whenever you learn those moves, you can do the button combination to do that move. It'll use some MP, depends on how much it costs. It goes to this little small animation, and you'll be able to do some heavy damage with this. The last function you can do is you can hit the select button and go to your main menu. You can go to the item menu, and you can see all your different weapons. You'll get different weapons throughout the game, as well as your items too. You can use these items in real time, but if you want to stop the game and use like a health item, you can do that as well. As mentioned earlier, there are two protagonists that you can play as. You can play as Kataru, or you can play as Lin, and they both have different kind of gameplay styles in a way. For the most part, they play the same, pretty much, same controls and everything, but Kataru, he's a samurai, so he's got a larger sword. It's a little bit slower than Lin's knives, but it does a lot more damage. Also, the only items that he can use are health items, and there's not many in the game. Lyn plays just like Kotaro, but she has knives, and they're a little faster to use, but they're a little weaker than Kotaro's sword. But at the same time, she can also use ranged weapons. She can use like shurikens, explosives, and stuff like that. So it's a trade-off for sure, especially with the weaker weapon that she has. To actually beat this game though and get the true ending, you do need to play as both characters. Sure, you'll get to the credits just with one, but you'll see kind of a cliffhanger that happens at the end. So really it's better played if you play both sides of the story. No matter which character you choose to play the game, this game has definitely got a learning curve and a challenge to it. I will say this from my experience, I think Lyn's story is a little easier than Kotaro's, also because she has ranged weapons that she can use, Kotaro can't, but overall Kotaro just has more challenge in his adventure. But nonetheless, if you get down the controls pretty well with how the parrying and the swordplay and dodging work, well, you're going to have an easy time getting through this. But if you just run in trying to attack, you're going to have a terrible time and you're probably going to throw the controller at your TV and just stop playing this game. No joke, there were times towards the end of the game when I was playing as Kotaro and I was just getting killed constantly, and my god. And that leads me to my next point. Whenever you die, you go all the way back to the title screen and you have to watch the intro again. So yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those games. To save the game, there's these flowers you'll find out throughout your adventure, and it is very important to save at those flowers any chance you get, because if you don't, and you die and you're far in the game, you're going to have to do everything over again. The game is structured around 6 chapters you go through, chapter 1 through 6, and then when you beat it as both characters, you have a conclusion chapter. In these chapters, they're pretty linear, but when you get to chapter 6, you can kind of free roam around the village and go to the places you've been to or haven't been to. For Kotaro, for example, he has the ability to get better swords if he wants to. This isn't totally mandatory, but if you want to get some better weapons and such, well, it's nice that the option is there. There's not too much enemy variety in this game. They're all kind of similar. They're just kind of undead samurais that you fight, or some undead ninjas, and you'll just kind of rinse and repeat. They'll just do reskins, so you'll be fighting those the most, pretty much. The boss variety is pretty good in this game too. You definitely fight different bosses on each character that you play as, but at the end, you'll actually fight the same guy together. Each boss fight gets progressively harder each time you fight it, so the difficulty curve is just right with this game. The atmosphere of Soul of the Samurai is really neat. I love the feudal Japan setting. I usually always strayed away from pre-rendered backgrounds, especially like games like Final Fantasy VII and Digimon World, but you know, in this game, I actually do kind of like it. I like the fixed cameras too. It just kind of goes well with this kind of setting. You really feel like a samurai or a ninja in feudal Japan. What really elevates this game too is the music. The music's very ambient and calm, and it's got that feudal Japan sound. And I love this kind of stuff in games too. I remember playing Goemon on the N64 and having that same kind of vibe. The composer is Yasuhisa Ito. He's not known for too much, but he's been with Konami for a long time. Soul of the Samurai really was one of the only games he actually composed all the way. He's helped out with other stuff too, like Metal Gear Solid 4 and such. Soul of the Samurai is definitely an underrated game for the PS1. I definitely recommend playing this game, especially if you like that kind of gameplay like Resident Evil mixed with Bushido Blade, as well as Tenchu. You get a lot of cool stuff here. It's very linear to its core. It's also on the short side, but the combat is pretty good. I like the swordplay a lot with the parrying. It's very addicting whenever you get that down, as well as exploring all these different places like the forest, the village, the temple, and all that stuff. It's definitely not the most polished game that Konami has ever made, and it definitely needs some voice acting. I think voice acting would have been a very good touch to this game. If Metal Gear Solid can have voice acting all the way through the game, this game for sure can as well. Like a lot of other games I review in this channel, Soul of the Samurai is stuck on the PlayStation 1 only. I didn't see it on the PS3 store either, so unfortunately, if you want to play this game and have it physical, it goes for almost $70 complete in box. Not a terrible price, but that's a little steep for a lot of people. They really should remaster this game, not too sure why. If they remastered the Suikoden games from the PS1, which definitely probably sold a little less than this game, then why not this one? I don't know. I think it definitely deserves a remake, so maybe someday we'll see it, but if we don't see it, we'll continue to play on the PS1, and by other means necessary. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoy this kind of content, be sure to give it a like. You got something to say? Leave a comment down below. And of course, if you like this content and want to see more like this in the future, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.